All right, welcome everybody. My name is Jackson Rand. I'm the GIS planner at Stratford Regional Planning Commission. And what we're going to be talking about today is a bunch of online mapping tools and resources that SRPC has created recently. So there's two main things we're going to talk about. SRPC has an online standard map set of PDF static maps on our webpage. And we've also created an ArcOnline website that has a bunch of tools and resources. And we're going to get into specifics for both of those two things today on the webinar. And at the end, we're going to have a hands-on exercise where I'm going to lead you guys through how to create a map using our ArcOnline site. So why are we doing this webinar? We at SRPC have created a lot of new content on our ArcOnline site that didn't exist as of probably 6 months ago. And we figured this was going to be the best way to kind of disseminate all of that new information that we have online. Also with COVID and with working from home for a lot of us, we have tools and resources on our webpage that can help you do your jobs from home as opposed to needing to come into the SRPC office for maps or for data or other purposes. Before I move on, I just want to quickly acknowledge Shayna Sylvia for helping us get this webinar off and running. And I'm also going to turn it over to her just for a quick minute to talk about some housekeeping, how to use the chat box, and other things like that. So Shayna, if you want to.
Yes. So welcome everyone today. Thank you for joining us. Like I said, for some of the people already entering, you already heard me say this, but it's your discretion whether you want to have your cameras on or off. Jackson's going to give an overview first before the interactive activity. All participants are muted right now. We will undo that during the Q&A. There should be a Q&A feature on your toolbar, so you can use that to ask questions and we can track them that way. The chat is more if you need to communicate with anyone else within the webinar, or if you do have any technical difficulties, we'll try to help if we see anything in the chat box with that. And we will have that Q&A at the end, and people will be able to ask questions if they have them while we're doing the walkthrough of how to create your own maps. So that's just a little bit of housekeeping, and Jackson will launch in now. So thank you.
Thank you, Shayna. Before we get started, we're going to put a couple of poll questions up on the screen. If everyone wouldn't mind taking just a minute to answer these poll questions, it'll give us a better idea of who our audience is today.
Yep, so I will launch those right now. And just as a note, it looks like maybe the Q&A function isn't enabled because maybe this is a meeting and not a webinar, so that could potentially be why. So feel free to put your questions in the chat and I will keep track of that. So sorry for any difficulties. So I will launch this poll now and give you guys a minute or so to answer. There's 3 questions in this first poll. And I think we had someone just jump on. So right now we're just asking attendees to answer these couple poll questions to kick off the meeting.
Shayna, I can't see the poll responses come in, so can you just let me know when it looks like most people have responded?
Yep, I'll give it like 10 more seconds. We have almost everyone. Okay, awesome.
Cool, thank you. So for the first part of this webinar, I'm going to give an overview of a lot of the mapping tools we have on our webpage and our ArcOnline site. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm also going to turn off my camera so that I don't have any internet issues at home while doing this presentation. And then I'll turn my camera back on when we get to Q&A towards the end of the session. So let me just share my screen quickly. All right, is everyone able to see my screen now, the Stratford RPC webpage? Awesome. Let's see, give me one moment. Cool. So this is the SRPC homepage. And on this homepage, we have a GIS and data button in the top right. And if you hover over that GIS button, you'll see a bunch of options pop up. One of them being down here in the bottom left are standardized maps. So our standardized maps are a map set that uses standardized data that is statewide that typically comes from New Hampshire Granite or USGS or NOAA with a couple other data sets as well. So these maps are all on our webpage for each municipality in the SRPC region. And you can choose these maps, select a municipality, and view the available standard map for that town. And all of these standardized maps are available for anyone to download and print on their own. We have, let me just hit the back button, 6 categories of standardized maps. The first is a plain aerial of your municipality. The second shows community features, which include fire stations, libraries, schools, healthcare centers, and other important facilities like that. The third category is our transportation map, which shows all roads, bridges, all public transit. The fourth is a land use map. This land use map uses the statewide standardized land use layer that's hosted on New Hampshire Granite. The fifth is a conservation and recreation map, which shows all conservation lands and all recreation sites in each municipality. And the final is a water resources map. And these show groundwater resources and surface water resources for all municipalities. So I'll find one more example. Let's look at the water resources map for Middleton. So here you can see all of the surface water resources and groundwater resources for the town of Middleton. You can download this map and you can save it for your own use, and you can print these maps out. Anyone is allowed to print these maps. You don't need prior permission from SRPC. These are all formatted as 36-inch by 36-inch maps, so they're poster size, but you can print them at whatever size you wish. And again, just as a reminder, if any questions come up, feel free to post your questions in the chat box and we'll get to them during the Q&A portion. If we go back to the home page of the SRPC website and back to that GIS and data button in the top right, you can get to the ArcOnline homepage for SRPC from here. So for the rest of this demonstration, I'm going to be showing new tools and resources that we have on our ArcOnline webpage. So here on the webpage at the top, you'll see a row of featured content. These are either active project maps or most popular maps that people use our ArcOnline webpage for. So these 4 maps in the featured content section are always changing. Below that, we have a couple rows of standard maps. All of the standard maps I just showed you on the SRPC webpage are also available on ArcOnline in an interactive format. And I'll explore one of these maps in just a minute once I finish reviewing the homepage. Further down on the homepage, you'll see that we have project maps. So these are maps that are created on ArcOnline for specific projects or specific plans that SRPC is working on. Right now, we only have these 2 project maps as our ArcOnline site is still fairly new to our organization. Also, these maps that you're seeing on our homepage are only a selection of all of the maps that SRPC has available on our ArcOnline site. If you want to see every map that we have available on our ArcOnline site, you can scroll to the top and click on the gallery button. This is our entire map gallery of all ArcOnline maps that SRPC has created. I'm going to go back to the ArcOnline homepage. And I'm going to show you an example of our standard maps that have been created on ArcOnline. So we have two versions of our standard maps. The first I showed you already on the SRPC website are static PDF maps. So those you can download, you can print, but you can't interact with the map. These standard maps on our ArcOnline site are interactive. So let's look at the community features map. Once the map loads, you can use the scroll on your mouse, just scroll in and out to zoom to particular areas within the SRPC region. You can also go to the top left here in the base map button, and you can change the base map that you see underneath the data. So I'm going to change it to an imagery base map. So now you'll see that underneath all of the data are satellite imagery. I'm going to change it back to the plain gray, so it's a little easier to see. All of the data on the map, you can click on and get more information about that data. So if I click on a road, a pop-up will come up with more information about that road, such as the name of the road, the DOT functional system, and other information. If we look at the points for the community features, we can also click on those and see more information about what feature is at that point. So this point that I just clicked on, we see as a school. It gives the name of the school and the address of that school. If I click on a couple of others, you'll see we have libraries, fire departments, police departments, public work buildings, and a variety of other data on community features. All of these community features, you can also change how they appear on the map. So if we go to content, you'll see the community features layer. If you hover over each of these buttons, you'll see a little pop-up that tells you what it means. This button with the different shapes will change the symbology of the layer. So if, for example, instead of having dots for all these community features, you wanted them to show up as stars, we can click on this change symbology button, click on each symbol, and we could change it to a star. So now you'll see down here, our dot has changed to a star. That's just one example of what you can do with symbology. You can change these points to look like anything you would want that point to look like. There's also a search bar. So if you want to search, for example, what's near you, your house, or what's near your office, you can type in an address. I'm going to type in the address for the SRPC office in Rochester. It'll zoom right to that address, and you can see what community features are nearby. So again, this is just an example of what the community features map looks like. I'm not going to look at all of the different standard maps that we have on ArcOnline, but they all function the same way. You can zoom in and out. You can click on data to get more information about that data point, and you can use a search bar to search for areas near you. With that being said, that's all I have to show for the standard maps portion before we move on. And also before we move on, we have two more poll questions that we'd like to ask you all particularly about our website standard maps and ArcOnline standard maps. So we are going to pull up those poll questions in just a moment and give you all a minute to answer those poll questions before we move forward.
Okay, so here is the first of two. Give another couple seconds. Thank you. It looks like we have about 60% that have and 40% that have not yet. And we will launch one more poll question. Give another couple seconds. It looks like people are interested in more using the online versions. And we have a few that haven't used either yet or use both equally. So I think back to Jackson.
Great, thank you, Shayna. So I'm going to close this and go back to the home page of our ArcOnline site. And the next thing I'm going to show you is the SRPC Open Data Portal. The Open Data Portal is a site where you can download any of our GIS data layers. I should say almost any of them. A couple of our data layers are sensitive and secure, but 95% of them are available here to download for free. On this page, if you scroll down, you'll see a bunch of categories of types of data. And if you click on one of these categories, we'll use conservation and recreation. You'll see any GIS data layers SRPC has that fit into that conservation or recreation category. I'm going to open up the conservation land layer as an example. And here we have a download button. You can download this conservation lands data layer as an Excel spreadsheet, a KML file, or a shapefile. If you are not a GIS user or do not wish to use this GIS data, but want to see the attribute data for all of the conservation lands, you can download as a spreadsheet. A KML file is used in Google Earth. This is a good way to use GIS data if you are not an experienced GIS user or if you don't have Esri software. And a shapefile is the main data type used with Esri GIS programs, such as ArcMap and ArcPro. All of those can be downloaded for free from this webpage. If we go back to the main page of the Open Data Portal, we also have a search bar where you can search for any data that you're looking for. So let's say you're interested in finding data on lakes and ponds in the SRPC region. You can type in lake. And it'll bring you right to the lakes and ponds data layer. I should also mention there's a brief description of what the data layer is showing and where it comes from. So SRPC does not create this lakes and ponds data layer, but the description here tells you that the data came from USGS. Just like the other example I showed, you can download this data as a spreadsheet, a KML file, or a shapefile. That is a very brief overview of the open data portal on the SRPC ArcOnline page. We are going to load up one more poll question for you all to answer quickly about the open data portal.
Okay. Let me launch that right now. We'll give a couple more seconds. And I should be able to share the results on the screen. It looks like we have about 3 people who have used it before and 16 who have not.
Great, thank you, Shayna.
Thanks.
All right, I am going to close the open data portal page and go back to the SRPC ArcOnline site homepage. The last new tool we've created that I'm going to give a quick demonstration of is our Tax Parcel Viewer. This Tax Parcel Viewer shows all of the tax parcels for all 18 cities and towns in the SRPC region. We've also given every municipality the opportunity to host their assessing data on here, which about half of the cities and towns have included assessing data with their parcel data. So if I zoom in, let's go to Stratford today. You'll see all of the parcels pop up in pink. And all of these parcels, just like other data on the other ArcOnline maps, you can click on and see more information. So Stratford, for example, has decided to include assessing data with their parcel data. So you can see information such as the owner of this parcel, parcel information, and assessing values for the parcel. Though not every municipality has decided to include this level of detail in their data. Prior to using the ArcOnline Parcel Viewer, SRPC was using MapGeo, which many of you may be familiar with. We are no longer using MapGeo and instead only using the ArcOnline Parcel Viewer. This Parcel Viewer has been offered as a service that SRPC can provide free of charge to all 18 cities and towns. We zoom back out. You'll see that we have a search bar where you can search for parcel IDs or for addresses. So as an example, I'm going to type in a parcel ID for a parcel that exists in Rochester. Sorry, Farmington. When I type in that parcel ID and hit enter, the map automatically zooms in to that parcel and shows you all of the assessing data available for that parcel. You can also use the search bar to search by address. So if I zoom back out and type in an address, the parcel viewer will automatically zoom into that parcel. And again, all of the assessing data will pop up. On this parcel viewer, there's a bunch of tools up in the top right. This first button will show you a list of data layers that you can turn on and off. So for example, if you wanted to look at this parcel and view contour lines, you can turn on the contours data layer. If you wanted to see if this parcel is located in a flood zone, you can turn on the flood zone layer, which it popped up right down here. If I zoom out a little bit, you can see the flood zone layer here. So this parcel does not lie in a 100-year flood zone. I'm going to turn that layer back off. The next button we have is a legend. So you'll see all the data layers that are turned on and what they look like. The next button is a base maps button. So if you wanted to look at this parcel, ooh, not now. If you wanted to look at this parcel on top of an aerial base map, you can turn on the aerial imagery layer. I'm going to go back to the gray base map as it's a little easier to see. Lastly, if you've turned on certain layers that you're interested in seeing, and you want to print this map, the last button is a print button. If you click on that, you can choose various page sizes, and you can choose what file type you want the map to be created in. So I'm going to say a basic landscape format in PDF and click print. Sometimes this does take a few minutes. So if it takes too long, I might just cancel it. But it will create a PDF for you that you can then print. That was pretty quick. And here's the map that we've been able to create right out of the Tax Parcel Viewer. I'm going to close this map and go back to the Tax Parcel Viewer. And that is a brief overview of how to use the Tax Parcel Viewer tool. We have one last poll question for you to answer for today about the Tax Parcel Viewer, and we will pull that up now before moving on.
Okay. And there you go.
And this will be the last poll question we ask of you today.
Give it a couple more seconds. Let me share the results. So about 22% have used both and prefer ArcOnline. 2 people have used both but no preference. Oh, sorry. 2 people have used both but no preference. 17% have used ArcOnline Tax Parcel Viewer only. A couple only MapGeo, and we have some newcomers to both. So Jackson, before we launch into the tutorial, we had 2 questions. So Ellen Snyder asked, how are the data layers updated?
So most of the data layers that we have on this ArcOnline page are not created by SRPC. Well, I can turn. Let's try. Most of the data layers we have on the ArcOnline site are not created by SRPC. They are mostly created by Granite, some by USGS, some by NOAA, and some from other sources. So whenever those sources update their data, I'll give an example. New Hampshire Granite updates their conservation lands layer every year or 2, I believe. So whenever they update their conservation lands layer, we update that layer on the ArcOnline page. And we do that pretty quickly. I'd say within a week or 2 of the Granite layer being updated, we have the updated data on our ArcOnline site.
Thank you. We also had another question from a gentleman named Joe. He said on the tax parcel, he noticed that the appraisal data is not correct. For example, it didn't have a correct owner address. He wanted to know if this something that was, if this was an error with a town data submission or could be something else.
So the assessing data we're showing on the tax parcel viewer comes directly from the city or town and is updated on an annual basis. So if that data is incorrect, it either changed within the past 12 months and we haven't received the updated data yet, or the city and town is having an issue on their end. We do not update or maintain that data. We just show the data that the town or city has given us on an annual basis. So I should also preface all of these maps and resources as being for planning purposes only. For official information, it's always the best bet to reach out directly to the city or town. We're providing these resources for planning purposes only.
We have 2 more questions and then we'll save the rest for the end of the presentation.
Okay.
From Diane Hardy with Newmarket, she said, there will be adopted new floodplain maps early January. Will we have those new maps on your website?
As soon as the GIS data is available, we will be updating that to the website. So I was not at SRPC the last time that FEMA flood maps were updated. So I can't confirm if GIS data comes out at the same time as the actual maps. I'm getting a yes from Jen that they do. But as soon as the GIS data is available, that'll be posted on our ArcOnline site and updated.
Okay, and last question before the Q&A at the end. Do you get notified about data updates or do you have to check on possible updates?
We get notified on data updates.
Awesome, thank you. And again, we'll reassess the rest of the questions at the end of Jackson's tutorial.
Great, thank you, Shayna.
Thanks.
I am going to share my screen again so that we can get into the hands-on exercise of how to create your own map on our ArcOnline page. Give me just a moment to share my screen. Can I just get a nod from some people once my screen has started sharing?
We still see your profile right now.
Oh no, I hit the wrong button.
You should be good.
Cool, thank you. So we are now back on the homepage of the SRPC ArcOnline site. What I'm going to be showing now is a hands-on demonstration that you can all follow along with on how to create your own map. I am going to open the mapping section and then just give an overview of the various tools you can use. And I will let you know when it's time for you to follow along and actually make the map with me. But for now, just watch for a minute. So on our ArcOnline homepage, in the top left, there's a button that says Map. If you click on that button, it'll bring you to the mapping portal where you're able to create your own map. In the top right, the first thing you should do is click Modify Map. This gives you the ability to start adding data and changing base maps and changing symbology on the map. In the top left, there's an Add button. And again, don't follow along with me just yet. Just be watching and I'll let you know when we're going to create a map together. Using this Add button, you can click on Search for Layers and you will see all of the data layers that are available from SRPC for you to add to your map. And these are all the same data layers that are available in the Open Data Portal. So if you are an experienced GIS user and you have your own GIS software, you can go to the SRPC Open Data Portal and download data to use in your own software. If you're not an experienced GIS user and you don't have GIS software, you can use this mapping portal to create your own maps. I'm going to add, let's say, lakes and ponds as an example. So now you're seeing all of the lakes and ponds in the SRPC region. If we hit the details button and go to content, you'll see the lakes and ponds layer pop up in the list of contents. We can go to the symbology button to change what we want the lakes and ponds to look like. I'd say right now the lakes and ponds are blue, and that's exactly what we want them to look like. But let's just, for sake of example, say we want them to be purple. You can click on this purple button, and the lakes and ponds will change to a purple color once you click OK. And you can change them to be whatever color you'd like. Next to the content button, we have a legend. This legend will show you all of the data layers that you've added to the map and what symbol is being used for that data layer. You can also change the base map. So let's look at an imagery base map, for example. And there are a lot of different base maps that you can use. We can use USA Topo maps. We can use a community features map. We can use a dark gray base map, but I'm going to put it back on the light gray. The last thing I want to show you quickly is that you can print this map. Using the print button, I'm going to select map with legend. Sometimes it takes just a minute to load. And now we have a map that we can print as a PDF showing all of the lakes and ponds in the SRPC region. I did this as a very quick overview of the tools. We'd obviously want to center this map showing the entire region, but I was just doing a quick overview of how to print. So we go back to the map viewer and back to content. I'm going to remove the lakes and ponds layer. And now we're going to go into the hands-on exercise of how to make your own map. This will work best if you have dual monitors, or if you're viewing this presentation on your phone or tablet and using your computer to make the map. If you're watching this presentation on a computer and you only have one monitor, you can still follow along easily. You'll just be bouncing back and forth between screens. And as a reminder, this presentation is being recorded and will be posted on the SRPC webpage for you to review. So I want everybody to, if you're not already at the mapping portal, remember you can go back to the Stratford RPC webpage, hover over the GIS and data button. You can click on the ArcOnline homepage link, which will bring you right to the ArcOnline homepage. And the mapping portal can be found on the map button in the top left. The map is initially prompting you to sign in, but you do not need an ArcOnline account and you do not need to sign in to create this map. We're going to create a map showing FEMA 100-year floodplains in a city or town of your choosing. So the first thing I'd like everyone to do is click the Modify Map button in the top right corner. And then in the top left corner, click the Add button. Once here, you can click on the Search for Layers button. And this will show you all of the SRPC data layers that are available for you to use.
I'm just going to interject real quick, Jackson. If anyone has a question or gets stuck in the middle of this tutorial, feel free to type it in the chat, or you also have the ability to unmute yourself. So if you have a question and want to get caught up, feel free to do that as well.
Thank you, Shayna.
Thanks.
Once you are seeing the list of available data layers, I'm hoping you see them in the same order I do, but we want to click on the layer that says SRPC region. And if yours are not showing up in the same order as mine, you can go to the search box and type in SRPC region. If you click on the SRPC region data layer and then click add to map, you will see all the cities and towns in the SRPC region. Once here, I'm going to have you go to the top left of the screen and click on details. And then below details, click on content. So we can now see the SRPC region data layer. The fourth button underneath the SRPC region data layer, if you hover over it, this button says filter. We're going to click on this filter button so that instead of seeing the whole region of SRPC, we're going to filter it to show just one city or town. So click on that filter button. In this first dropdown, I want you to click on the drop-down button and then select the name field. We want this expression to say name is, and then type in the city or town in the SRPC region you'd like to view. So I'm going to type in Barrington as an example, but you can type in any city or town that's in the SRPC region. I've used Barrington, and I'm going to select apply filter and zoom to. So now instead of seeing the whole SRPC region, I'm only seeing the town of Barrington. I'll pause for just a brief moment to let everyone catch up. From here, we don't really like how this town data is showing up as a blue box. Instead, I want just a black outline so I can see everything within the town of Barrington. To do that, I'm going to go back up to the SRPC region data layer and click on the symbology, the change style button, which is the third button. It's a bunch of different shapes. Once here, I can select options. If you find the blue square with the black outline in the top left and click on it, you can now change the symbology for your town. You can make yours look however you'd like, but I'm going to make mine as a black outline with no fill. So I have the fill button selected here. And if you see the white box with the red slash through it, that means no color. So I'm going to select that no color button and click OK. Now the town of Barrington shows as just a black square with nothing filled in so that I can see everything within the town of Barrington. And I'm again going to click OK in the bottom left. And done. So now we want to add the floodplain data. To do that, we're going to go back to the add button in the top left of the screen. I'm going to click that add button and go back to search for layers. This is now again going to show all of the SRPC data layers that are available for you to use. This time I'm going to select the FEMA 100-year flood zone layer. Hopefully you're all seeing them in the same order I am, and the flood zone layer is right here at the top. But if not, you can click on the search box and type in FEMA flood zone. For me, it's showing up right here. I'm going to click on the FEMA 100-year flood zone button and select Add to Map. And now we can see all of the FEMA 100-year flood zones in the SRPC region. I'm going to click Details in the top left, and then Content to view both of the data layers that we've added to the map. When you add the 100-year flood zone data, most likely the screen has zoomed out to show all of the flood zone layer in the entire SRPC region. If you want to zoom back directly to the town that you've selected, you can hover over the SRPC region data layer. The last button is an ellipses, and if you hover over that, you get a more options option. If you click on that button, we can now click the zoom to option, and your map should zoom directly to the one city or town you've selected. Mine zoomed in a little too much. You'll see that on my map, the 100-year flood zone data has disappeared. To get that data to reappear, I'm going to hover over the 100-year flood zone data layer, select the symbology button, select options, and this bottom scale bar is showing the visibility range of our data layer. I'm going to take this little triangle and zoom it all the way this way. This visibility range you can adjust so that when you zoom out too far or zoom in too close, the data layer is turned off. But for today, we don't want that. We want this data layer to show at all visibility ranges. I also don't want my FEMA flood zone data to show up as blue. I want mine to show up as red instead. So in the same symbology options, I'm going to go back to the blue square showing the current symbology in the top left. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to make sure the fill option is highlighted. And I'm going to select a red color for my FEMA flood zone. But you can select any color that you'd like. Once I've selected the color I want, I can click OK. In the bottom left, I can click OK. And I can click Done. So now I'm seeing the map exactly as I want it. I'm seeing just the city or town I've selected, which is Barrington. And I'm seeing the flood zones that go through the town of Barrington. So now that I'm seeing exactly what I want to see on the map, I'm going to print it. Up at the top of the screen, you have a print option. You select that print option. You can print your map as just a map or a map with a legend. I'm going to print mine as a map with a legend. That'll open a new tab. The map usually takes a minute or so to load. So I'm just going to wait a moment for this map to load. Hopefully. So now you'll see that we've created a FEMA 100-year flood zone map for just the town of Barrington using SRPC's online mapping tools, completely free with no need for any GIS licenses. I'm going to close this map. Ooh, go away. And I'm going to return now. Ooh, one more thing I wanted to mention. If you do have an ArcOnline account, either through your employer or a personal account, you can save this map for future use. I'm not logged in right now to my account. I wanted to show how this can be done without any account logins. So I'm not going to demonstrate how to save this map. But if you do have an ArcOnline account, you are able to use the save button to save the map to your account for future use.
Jackson, we do have a question.
Yep.
Someone's asking, how do you pan to change map regions? So I assume they're asking if there's data for regions outside of SRPC. I'm not 100% sure, but how do you pan?
Can you
to
repeat
change
that question?
Yep. How do you pan to change map regions? And Peter, feel free to elaborate if I'm not conveying your question correctly.
So if you're referring to just move around on the screen, if you click anywhere and hold the button down, you can then drag the map to wherever you'd like it to be. If you are referring to seeing areas outside of the SRPC region, we do not currently host any of our data layers outside of the SRPC region.
So he elaborated a little bit. He said map was not centered on the city, how to change the region shown in the map, drag in a map or in the previous view. So I don't know if that's when you were zooming back into the selection of Barrington itself, or maybe you just want to show how to do that again.
Yeah, I can do that. Okay. So sometimes with ArcOnline, let's see. If I zoom to, so go right to Barrington, you'll see that the map is centered on the town of Barrington, but some of the edges are cut off. So I'm going to hover my mouse right in the center, and I'm going to scroll out one click and manually move to center this map. The one downside I have found to using ArcOnline is that sometimes when you use this ellipses button and click on zoom to, it zooms into that area, but not exactly what you want to be seeing. So sometimes you do manually have to use your mouse scroll to scroll out one click and then manually recenter. If you're referring to the map that gets printed to a new screen, that map is going to be showing exactly what you have on this screen. So you want to make sure this screen is centered and zoomed to a good extent before clicking on the print button. I'll also mention now that that is the end of the hands-on demonstration of creating your own maps. It is about 3:56-ish. So before moving on, we did say this presentation would end at 4. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who's joined. I am going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. I'm going to post my contact information into the chat box. If anyone has any feedback or questions for me, feel free to reach out directly to the email address I post in the chat box. And then at this point, we're going to open the floor for questions and answers. And if you have questions and you're available to stay, we are available to stay online this presentation until 4:30 to answer any questions. But for anyone who does need to leave at 4, I just want to thank you for joining and let you know that we have finished the presentation portion of this webinar, and we'll be opening for questions now.
Yes.
So feel free to type your questions into the chat box, or I think you have the ability to unmute yourself.
We do have a question in the chat box, and just before I launch into that, like I said, we did record this, so we will get that up on our YouTube channel, and I can share that link with everyone in case there was a step that you missed or you want to go back and reference something. You'll have the ability to do that. So just noting that. We did get one additional question, Jackson. Is there a cost to having an ArcOnline account?
If you have an ArcOnline account through your employer, there is special pricing for an organizational account. You can get a personal ArcOnline account for free, but it has limited functionality. You can also get a paid version of a personal account just for yourself that has full functionality. But I, off the top of my head, do not know what any of those prices are. You are able to do everything that I've shown on this presentation today without an ArcOnline account, with no license, for free.
We don't currently have any more questions in the chat, so I don't know if feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question or type it in the chat. We can give another minute or so if people have any lingering questions. And also feel free to contact Jackson. When I send out the link to the video, once it's online, I can also include his contact information in case you think of anything else after this tutorial.
I'll also mention quickly that we are having this presentation again next week. So if there's anything that you've missed that you want to see again, or if you have any friends or coworkers who you think may benefit from this presentation, we are doing this again on December 2nd from 6 to 7 p.m. I'm seeing a question from Jack. Does the free account include save as capability? I'm 98% positive it does. I don't want to 100% confirm that because I actually don't have the free account, but I'm pretty sure it does have the save as functionality.
And we just had a suggestion for next time, and we can maybe include this in the next webinar we're doing on December 2nd, a short user's guide to buttons and features. So maybe just elaborating on some of those.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We are, for those of you who don't know, in the process of creating an updated SRPC webpage. And with that is going to be a very revamped GIS section on that page. So I think it would be great for us to create some sort of online guide showing how to do a lot of the things that I've demonstrated today. So thank you for that suggestion.
Awesome. I think with that, we can wrap up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
And everyone have a great Thanksgiving holiday.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Jackson.
Thank you, everyone.